Hi, this is Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder here with another deck tech. I don't have time to play the games today, but I thought I would show the deck list of what I just did in the standard event, going 7 wins and no losses. This is the third consecutive 7 wins, not no losses, but at least going 7 wins through the standard event. Before I talk about the deck, this is something I suggest anyone that is arena grinding right now, is this is what you should be doing instead of playing that trash format they call ranked. Ranked is a waste of time unless you're trying to go for the mythic and get a invite, which is meaning you're going to have no life. You're going to be stuck to MTG Arena and grinding and grinding and grinding, especially those last few days before the season ends. You should not be playing in the ranked events. You should be playing it in the standard events. The queues are just as quick. The games go by just as quick. It does have an entry fee, but if you are a gold or higher rated player, you should be able to easily hit that threshold of 5 wins where you break even. And then at the 6 wins and 7 wins is where you actually start to get more than you put in the tournament. And you also are working towards these cards that you get here. You actually work towards hitting your the treasure chest, whatever they call it in MTG Arena, where you get some free mythics and uncommons and rares for opening it. So this is something I highly suggest that you get into the habit of doing rather than ranked. Ranked is a scam. Don't do it. So standard events, the way to go. It doesn't even match you based upon your rating. It just matches you based upon the people are queued up, which means, like I said, if you're better than gold, if you're like a platinum player or higher, you should easily be able to do these 5, 6, 7 wins consistently. All right, so here we go. Claim the prize for the 7 wins. You get double your money. I have the rare that they were going to give me, so you get 20 gems, and a rare that I don't have yet, and then an uncommon. All these, of course, will work towards the vault. That's what it's called. So anyway, the deck that I did it with is my go-to deck right now, which is Mono Black. Mono Black is a very powerful deck right now in the meta. You are going to struggle a little bit against blue-white control, as well as some of the Fires of Invention builds can be a bit of an issue. The Cavalier one is hard sometimes. Sometimes you can just flat out race them, but the Cavalier deck can be quite problematic for this deck to try to beat. And then blue-white control. Other than that, the rest of the meta seems to be pretty easy. It's very good versus blue-red flash, extremely good. Like, you never drop a game versus blue-green, either flash or the ramp. And the deck that this is built to be is just the other aggro decks, whether it be food, knights. Food can be a little bit difficult too. Sometimes you can outrace them, but they can outvalue you. Fortunately, you don't see food as much anymore. It's a deck that is on its way out, in my opinion. It just doesn't match up quite very well against either Jeskai Fires or the Knight decks that are running around, the Embercleave decks that are running around. So I don't think you have to worry about food too much. This deck, though, does, speaking of Embercleave, this is the deck that it is matched up the best against. You will lose a few games versus Embercleaves that hit perfectly, but if it's just your run-of-the-mill regular Gruul or Knights version, you are going to match up better because your cards are going to be trading with their cards, and you have some cards that 2 for 1, or you'll get some residual value out of the cards. So this is my list right now for best of 1. This would be different for best of 2. However, I need to make a sideboard and actually try it in best of 3, not best of 2, and see how well the sideboard actually matches up. It'd be cards like Noxious Gearhulk. I'm thinking some more discard like Duress, maybe the Davriel in the sideboard for the control matchups would be good as well. So you're going to be very low to the ground with this deck. I only run 40 lands, or 20 lands in the deck and 40 non-lands, 4 being the Castle Locktwains and 16 Swamps. So we're pretty much pretty simple here on the mana base, making this a very budget-based deck. On our 1-drop slot is going to be one of the most powerful cards in the format right now with the Cauldron Familiar. This is a deck that does want to utilize Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven combo, as it's going to give you that residual damage per turn and the ability for you just to grind out your opponents. Speaking of which, like Spawn of Mayhem, there are a lot of other options too we'll get to that could go in this deck, and this list is by far not set in stone. You can customize it based upon your meta or your preferences. There are a lot of good options. I was even looking at building this into a Pioneer deck, and it just seems to be in this standard right now, we have some of the most powerful creatures ever printed, especially for this mono black aristocrats type strategy. Going back into Pioneer, you could get things like Zulaport Cutthroat, and probably the Gifted Aetherborn, but pretty much this list would fare quite well in Pioneer as is, and it has a nice little, like I said, the residual ability to dish out damage and stabilize. So Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven are going to play a very key role in this deck, with draining your opponent and being a card draw engine through the Midnight Reaper. Also with Iaria First of Locktwain, there's also the double duty of the ability to draw cards off of multiple Cauldron Familiars. If you have just one Witch's Oven and like double, it allows you to at least get some value out of those kind of overstock Cauldron Familiars. But also, every time you do activate the Cauldron Familiar Witch's Oven combo, it's going to drain for 2 rather than drain for 1 life. The next one drop is going to be Gutter Bones. Gutter Bones is another card that can come back. This is one of the cards, if you get flooded, is going to be a godsend, because you can then just spend the mana after you sacrifice like the Gutter Bones to a Witch's Oven or an Yara First of Locktwain, you can spend the mana to then bring it back and then cast it again. So it's going to be able to grind out your mid-range, your control matchups as well. It does come into play tapped. That's a little bit of an issue in this particular meta, but not too much. It's still worthwhile to run this in its slot, because it is a 1-drop with 2 power that can get your Knight of the Ebon Legion online as quick as possible. So the Gutter Bones on turn number 1, you always play it over like a Cauldron Familiar or Knight, and then you want to get the Knight down if you have one of those in your hand, and then you can start dishing out the enough damage on that particular turn to then start putting counters on your Knight of the Ebon Legion. What I like about this card right now is just for 3 more mana, is it can trade with anything in the format. It can block Questing Beasts, it can trade with the biggest creatures out there with that 3/3 Death Touch. This is another thing that if you do go the long distance with Mana Flood or just a long game, this is something you can easily pump twice with the deck, and now you have a massive creature that hopefully has some +1/+1 counters on it that is going to be attacking in for a significant amount of damage. So definitely the Knight of Ebon Legion deserves its spot. Now we are kind of a sacrifice-based deck. The go-to, my favorite one right now, is Lazotep Reaver. I'm not seeing a lot of other lists run this card, but this is basically 3 toughness and 2 power for 2 mana split within 2 cards. And it is a black token that it creates, so a Yara will actually trigger twice off the Lazotep Reaver, and this is 2 chump blockers that then can be either sacked for Witch's Ovens for then Cauldron Familiars later on, or can just be utilized with the Yara First of Locktwain for the card draw and Midnight Reaper, or just with Rankle Master of Pranks. It's 2 creatures that are fodder for you to sacrifice to start wheeling down your opponent's creatures. This is very significant in the Gruul and the blue-green matchup especially. So your opponent's going to start putting out bigger creatures than what you're doing, but you're going to use them as fodder to Rankle Master of Pranks. So the other one that is kind of a 2-for-1 is Orzhov Enforcer. I keep going back and forth on which one I prefer. I like to just get the Lazotep Reaver out and have the 2 triggers coming in right then and there. But Orzhov Enforcer is definitely the 5th and 6th Reaver here. It's 1/2 Death Touch, meaning it trades with everything that doesn't have first strike, and then leaves back a flying token that is also a black-white token, so it will trigger off a Yara. So you're getting a lot of value off the Orzhov Enforcer. There are a few other cards you could put in this slot. However, this is the best combination in this 2-drop slot for the Priest of Forgotten Gods. So that's another reason I'm running Lazotep Reaver over Orzhov Enforcer. Is one of the most powerful things you can do against various matchups is the turn 2 Lazotep Reaver into turn 3 Priest of the Forgotten Gods. So the Priest of Forgotten Gods will have the 2 creatures that just want to be sacked with the form of Lazotep Reaver, and then you're able to make your opponent sacrifice a creature. You add 2 mana to your mana pool and draw a card. So you're going to be able to replace the 1 card for 1 card, the 2 mana for 2 mana, and make your opponent lose 2 life. So I would say arguably one of the most powerful strategies is go turn 1 Knight of Ebon Legion, turn 2 Lazotep Reaver, turn 3 Priest of the Forgotten Gods, and attack in, hopefully get through with some cards. Maybe you can't quite dish off enough damage to get the +1/+1 counter, but then you're going to be online pretty soon for the Knight of the Ebon Legion to start getting those +1/+1 counters. If you can't attack in, a very common scenario is you'll hit off of the card draw, like a Cauldron Familiar, that you can actually spend the 2 mana on to then have that last point of damage for the Knight of the Ebon Legion. So we've talked about Ayari, the First of Locthwain. This is another good card. It triggers off itself, triggers off of every other card in this deck, which is very important for our Thoughtseize light card, which is Drill Bit. In this deck, it really does feel like a Thoughtseize. This is something that Spectacle is going to be turned on by almost every card in this deck pretty consistently. Even like Rankle with the haste can turn on the Drill Bit for a particular turn, or if you actually do each player loses 1 life and draw a card, and you end up drawing a Drill Bit, it's something that then you can rip out with the Drill Bit of the card the opponent just drew. So there's a nice little synergy even with this card here, but Drill Bit is just incredibly powerful in this format because you really don't need to rip anything out on first turn. Deafening Clarion is a 3 mana spell, board wipe. Time Wipe is even 5 mana board wipe. Kai's Wrath's a 4 mana board wipe. Cry of Carnarium is a 3 mana board wipe. Those are like the problematic cards that wipe our boards, that stop us from establishing like the aggro strategy versus our opponents. Things like the Fires of Invention are going to take a while to get out. The Nissas, the Questing Beast, these can be ripped out on turn 2, 3, no problem. You don't need a 1-drop Thoughtseize rip out a card. So often this will be a turn 2 after like a Gutterbones or a Knight of the Ebon Legion connects, or like a Cauldron Familiar. I hardly ever was wishing this would be a Thoughtseize and needed to do it on turn number 1. It's just not in standard right now. That in fact, even waiting a little bit for your opponents to draw a few cards to have those higher impact cards to rip out is better than a first turn Thoughtseize. So Drill Bit is incredibly good in this deck, and I highly suggest running between 2 and 4 in the main if you are going to be doing this best of 1. If you are doing your best of 3, this could be a card that could go to the sideboard. And like I said, at that point, maybe the Spawn of Mayhems or the Cavalier of Dawn, those type of cards might work better in this list. And like I said, I don't have a lot of time to play test this deck today. We're going to do one real quick, and we will call it a day, and then I'll show you So I'm just going to do a ranked. I've been telling people not to play ranked right now, but we'll just do a fast ranked here with the mono black deck, and hopefully you can see a good showing of what this deck can do. So speaking of which, about the matchups, I played against 2 Knights decks, a mono red deck, 2 blue-green decks, a blue-red deck, and a Fires and Invention deck. So that was the 7 that I just played against with the league. This is actually kind of a weak hand because of the 2 Wrinkle Master of Pranks, but you're not going to be mulliganing a 3-land hand with a 1-drop and a 3-drop. So worst case scenario is we draw the 3rd Wrinkle, but everything else should be a viable card for us to draw on our first draw. Ideally, I think I'd like a Priest this next turn because it even offers the Midnight Reaper Priest draw. And if we're going against the Golgari Adventures, this is actually a very doable matchup. There's, I'm just going to attack here, see if my opponent actually does block with a Gilded Goose. Wow, okay, so my opponent does not block with a Gilded Goose. I bluff it out. Don't know what my opponent was thinking I could have done. But we'll be able to Drill Bit out my opponent's hand. And now, at this point, of course, the Witch's Oven just goes bye-bye. We're going against Food here. Food is, like I said earlier, is one of the tougher matchups in the meta. Ripping out that Witch's Oven is very good, but my opponent still has the Spawn of Mayhem, which is a threat I need to get rid of. So let's see what our opponent does here as far as... There's the Mayhem Devil. But does have to use the Food. So I have a couple of options here. I'm just going to attack in with the Knight and get in for the damage. And I think I would rather do a... So Wicked Wolf can't come out next turn. A Yara... Yeah, we want a Yara online, I believe. So I put us down to a 13. Definitely the double shock was the factor here. Not going to be able to get that Wicked Wolf out. We ripped out the Witch's Oven, which is going to be crucial. Trail of Crumbs is going to be a bit of an issue of a card because now my opponent can take care of the Knight with the sacked Fabled Passage and a sacked food if my opponent decides to go that route. But then it also puts my opponent in a weird position. I mean, they can go for the Trail of Crumbs here. Let's see if my opponent decides to go that route. I think that's the correct route, is to, the two options to go the Cauldron Familiar off of the land, or utilize the Trail of Crumbs. And I think my opponent should be utilizing the Trail of Crumbs. So I guess Midnight Reaper, but we didn't know my opponent was going to find another sacrifice thing. Finds another Fabled Passage, and gets to not quite play. That's correct. Unfortunately, we missed our land drop here. This would have been a very powerful hit. We're going to lose the Wicked Wolf next turn. Probably the Yara is going to go. So I will just go the Midnight Reaper. And then, unfortunately, I can't sacrifice things without taking damage. That's why food can be, Mayhem Devil can be like a hard card for us to beat. But I still think Witch's Oven's the right call, especially when we saw Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven. So my opponent can possibly kill both, depending on how they play it. They could just make a food token and shoot down the Midnight Reaper. I'll still sack the Midnight Reaper to get a card, because we do want Rankle online as quick as possible. So let's see where our opponent's going to go. At my face, okay. That's fine and dandy. And the Wicked Wolf is going to come down and go for a Yara. Yep, that works. Don't want to sacrifice. Can't sacrifice yourself, right? Yep, can't do that. So we do get a draw card, though. And unfortunately, it's not a card that is going to be what we need at the moment. So this Trail of Crumbs could definitely outgrind us. It's going to be a grinding matchup. And this is the worst matchup that we can face right now in the meta. That was a very good one. We'll go Rankle here, and then attack in. Ooh, okay. So we're going to make our opponent... Ooh, each player sacks a creature is actually bad. We're just going to go discard a card. And we're going to get rid of Rankle number 2. Don't know how relevant this is going to be. Yeah, Cauldron Familiars goes away. So wanted to keep that Gilded Goose. I guess we could have made both players sacrifice a creature, and the Goose would have gone, and then my Midnight Reaper would have gone. Not sure if that's the right play. But this is... Paradise Druid is alright. Possibly should have attacked with the Midnight Reaper here too. So no blocks, so my opponent can create a food token. Alright, so we're going to go a Midnight Reaper here. And now I do think I attack in with both. Or will the Paradise Druid just eat the Midnight Reaper? At this point, I think it's fine. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Should just attack in. Yeah, and trade. Could we draw 2 cards? Because I do want to hit a land drop here. Ooh, okay, I want that Gilded Goose dead for sure. So Trail of Crumbs is where my opponent's trying to... Okay, get a draw 2 card still. This Witch's Oven is really terrible versus this Mayhem Devil, unfortunately. But we'll go ahead and throw it out. So it's surprising my opponent decided to trade with a Goose. Going down to 7, that's going to lead me... So Corvald Fake Curse, whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you sack another permanent. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent, you put a +1 counter and draw a card. That's going to be kind of rough for us to beat. Gonna go for a land, though, rather than a food token, huh? Not quite oh, gonna sacrifice the food token to the Wicked Wolf. Yeah, fair enough. Oh, gonna just do it for the... Alright, so I think we'll make a food token. Yeah, I think we want a food token, to be honest. Yeah, we want a food token. Unfortunately, now Rankle can't get through, and I have no way to destroy the Carvold. So I think we probably will lose this match, but there are a few things I can draw into. Not another Rankle. That's the worst thing. Take 6 here, go down to a 6. We have a Yara, though. All right, we still could possibly, we have a slim chance of actually pulling this off. But, I mean, Carvold's just going to give a lot of value. I think I have to block with Rankle, but we do have another Rankle. So, sacrifice. We can block everything, though. And that's fine. Should shoot down my... token, I would assume. Gonna go for the... Just need to avoid finding that second. Well... We get a block here with Rankle. Not take any damage. And another Wicked Wolf that's going to be able to fight a Yara. I think we're going to just be barely off now. With a Yara getting fought. We needed that Yara to survive. So, another Witch's Oven is bad. So my opponent goes down to a 1. We can hit a Cauldron Familiar off the top. That is the play. Yep, that's the play. And let's see if we can get here. So, attack. Each player is going to draw a card and lose a life. And that's all she wrote here. And we did not quite hit it. Can I survive is the question here. I don't think I do. I think I just lose. So we did not hit the other card that can just dish off a damage. So down to a 1. Close matchup. Just one more thing could have gone our way. And would have won that one. I'll play one more here. Hopefully we'll go up against a non-food deck, and you can see how this deck really shines against the other ones. It's always, of course, we go 7-0, then pick up the recording in the first one. We drop one by a slim margin. But I think that's the best. I think I played to my outs the best. Possibly I didn't block there. No, because my opponent could have gone for lethal at that point. All right, so this is another pretty decent hand with the... So the Witch's Oven makes the Gutter Bones combo really good. So we have the first turn Gutter Bones into second turn Reaver. And now we do need to find a land, though. If we do miss our third land drop, that's where this gets a little bit... I mean, that's where we lose this game, is we miss that third. Because we did get a lot of our high converted mana costs here. We hit our third. That's perfect. We'll go ahead and attack in with everything. And see if something at Brazen Borrower. Looks like our opponent is trying to think of... So, I don't want to run into Quench here. I want to bait off at it. Okay, so what is the weaker card to get countered here with a Quench? I think it honestly is a Yara. Okay, just an Opt. So not a quench, just an op. This was what I'd say is the easiest matchup by far is blue-green, whether it be the flash variant or the ramp, because it's all about the 1s and 2 drops. Once we get these established, they can't really stabilize. The difference between us and knights is they can stabilize versus knights. Versus us, it's very, very tough to stabilize. We just have this residual damage. So can't do a flash card that I'm worried about a Yara. I don't think I'll be using a Yara to draw. I probably actually will be. So we're going to leave a Yara back and just attack with these 3. And then it's just going to be Gutter Bones because at this point, the possibility of like a Sinister Sabotage is huge. Sinister Sabotage on a Gutter Bone. That's a good one. We'll go ahead and let that be countered. We could actually get it back from our hand here if we wanted to. But this does allow us to... I think I'm going to eat this token because I do want to draw a card. That perfect. Okay, so that allows for the Midnight Reaper now. So I don't see a way my opponent can come back from this. It's pretty much over. I mean, they have like the Howler. Again, Rankle would be an okay card here just to go for lethal, but it's just the same old here. What we're going to do is just attack in. So now it could become like a Brazen Borrower. Nope. All right, so these 3 are going to attack in. And if it's going to be the Ambusher, the Night Pack Ambusher that comes down, we should be in really good shape. So my opponent's not going to go for anything here. So what is the play? Well, we'll go for the Priest. Frilled Mystic is fine. Gets countered, sure. And then still feel like we want to draw a land here. So we'll get rid of the Reaver to draw a card. Draw 2 cards, actually. And there's Cauldron Familiar. That just does it. So there you go. That's very typical of how this game plays out versus blue-green. Very easy matchup. That was, what, turn 5? Win? And the deck just runs on full cylinders with how it combats blue-green. Very, very tough matchup for them. So, once again, I'll have to show you some Knights matchups. Pretty easy matchup. Gruul is pretty easy. Golgari Adventures is surprisingly easy. It's Food and Black-Red that I would say are the hardest matchups. Like Black-Red Sacrifice can go toe-to-toe with us. Sometimes they have like the Claim the Unborns that can take key cards from us and use them against us, like our Midnight Reapers or the Ayaras or hitting Priests. And then other than that, it's blue-white control would be the other tough matchup. We just don't have that oomph to really push through blue-white where they start to get stabilized with the Gaddox and the other board wipes. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Not a brew at all. This is more of the spiky deck that I think is the best meta choice at the moment. So if you are preparing for a local tournament or even a bigger tournament, I highly suggest this deck. Had a lot of success with it, and it is doing well here for, I know, Gold Tier 3 on Arena, but also the constructed 7-man or 7-round tournaments. This is Kevin with Rogue Deck Builder. Thanks for watching.